Wait, so after all this time, that's your problem with engineering?
Welcome to MsMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the times young Sheldon expanded on details or backstories that were not covered in The Big Bang Theory.
It's also why I never open a door without knocking 3 times.
Before we dive in, this is your spoiler warning. Number 20. When and why did Sheldon start wearing graphic t-shirts? For much of the series, our young genius was typically partial to checkered or striped shirts.
How about we lose the bow tie?
Why?
Look around, honey. None of the other kids are wearing one.
Well, perhaps I'll start a fad.
No, you won't. Please trust Mommy.
This fashion choice follows him through childhood and into his teen years. But in The Big Bang Theory, Sheldon is known for his love of graphic tees. So when did his taste change? In the season 5 finale of Young Sheldon, Sheldon faces an adolescent existential crisis. Missy comforts him, saying that all parts of growing up are worth embracing.
What if I grow up and none of those things ever happen?
All you can do is try it and find out.
Those are the fundamentals of the scientific method.
No, Doy.
This reassurance helps him face the changes he's experiencing and start finding his identity. We can only imagine that after meeting like-minded people over at Caltech, he decided to fully adopt this new style.
Wow, I might look too cool.
Number 19. How did Sheldon end up at Caltech? As any fan knows, Sheldon enrolled at Caltech for grad school when he was just 14.
And he's only 15 years old.
Not bad. I myself started graduate school at 14.
He sticks around, gets a job, and meets the friends who would become his close-knit group. However, his history with the university goes way back. Sure, it seemed like love at first sight when Sheldon first visited in season 3.
Imagine all the stimulating conversations that must go on at these tables.
I bet.
I can see myself going here one day.
I think you'd fit right in.
Later that season, he'd find out that Caltech was pretty keen to have him too.
How could you not tell me that Caltech wants me to go to school there?
Because you're not going, so it doesn't matter.
So I don't get a say in this?
Actually, no. Which is why that letter is addressed to the parents of Sheldon Cooper.
However, when it comes to choosing grad schools, it's not like it was a no-brainer for the young prodigy. Heck, he even considers MIT. However, Boston's frostier climate sends him straight to Pasadena, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Caltech?
Caltech.
Number 18. Why does Sheldon say coitus? In The Big Bang Theory, Sheldon often refers to physical intimacy as coitus.
So it went beyond the mere fact of coitus to a blow-by-blow, as it were.
Pun intended?
I'm sorry, what pun?
Most of us might think it's just his matter-of-fact way of talking. However, there's a story behind his choice of language. In season 5 of Young Sheldon, Missy's natural curiosity about the birds and the bees causes quite a stir.
That's silly. All you did was ask questions. And it's ruining my life. I'm never talking about sex again.
Well, all right.
Sheldon and Dr. Sturgis try to get to the bottom of what it is about the subject that makes people so squirmish. Unfortunately, their experiment costs Dr. Sturgis his job.
And now we know conversations like that can cost you your job.
You learn something new every day.
So Sheldon decides the best solution is to find a word so mechanical and devoid of emotion that practically no one will get flustered at the sound of it.
Then I found the perfect word. A word so bland and clinical that it would be impossible to take offense to it.
Coitus. That'll work.
Number 17. Where did Sheldon's strong dislike of hospitals begin? Few people like hospitals. However, Sheldon seems to really hate them to the point where you might even call it a phobia.
Sheldon, let's go! To a hospital? Full of sick people? Oh, I don't think so.
So where did that all begin? Well, if you cast your mind all the way back to season 1, episode 3, you may recall that George Sr. suffers a minor heart attack. Anxious about their father, the Cooper kids sneak out to the hospital.
I'm going to see Dad. You guys want to come?
How? Mima said we have to stay here.
You want to go or not?
While looking for a place to wash his hands, Sheldon happens to catch sight of the doctors treating his father. Poor kid, no one wants to think of their parent in such a vulnerable position, let alone have to see it. No wonder he becomes so averse to hospitals.
My thinking was, if he was right about the existence of God, then he could pass along my request for my dad to get better. If he was wrong, well, in this moment, I needed him to be right.
Number 16. Why was Sheldon so reluctant to learn how to drive? While we're on that episode, let's talk about how the Cooper kids got to the hospital. Georgie, a freshman in high school at the time, swipes their Meemaw's keys and gets behind the wheel.
Why don't we ask somebody for directions?
Because we're children in a car, genius. Dang it!
Are you aiming for them?
Everybody just shut up, I got this.
Their journey hits plenty of bumps, or should we say trash cans, along the way. Narrator Sheldon chimes in, citing this very event as the reason he was never keen on learning to drive.
I've often been asked why I never learned to drive a car. This night is your answer.
Luckily, they make it to the hospital in one piece. Still, we imagine Connie's accident a few seasons later didn't help either. Sheldon eventually learns to drive, but keeps it on the down low because, well, it's more fun to be chauffeured around, right?
So when I got up at 4 a.m. to drive you across the desert to an antique train museum, I didn't have to?
No, you didn't. And you keep in mind, I felt extremely important.
Number 15. What happened to Sheldon's childhood home? The Big Bang Theory fans may have noticed that the home Sheldon visits in East Texas isn't the same one we see in young Sheldon.
If you recall, when you were little, we sat right here at this very spot, and we talked about some of the problems you had getting along with the neighbor kids.
In the prequel series finale, it's revealed that, as many of us suspected, adult Sheldon had been writing his memoir, and we've been watching the chapters about his childhood. In a touching transition, adult Sheldon walks through the Cooper's home, reflecting on everything that he now holds close to his heart. He explains that his mom moved out sometime after his father passed away, and he'd moved to Pasadena.
Eventually, my mom sold the house. My dad's chair was gone. My spot was gone.
Luckily, before he left, he captured every part of the home to safely store away in his eidetic memory.
But I can still remember it exactly the way it was the day I left for Caltech.
Hey. What are you doing?
Taking it all in one last time, so I remember it when I'm older.
Number 14. What about Sheldon's idol, Professor Proton?
I power a clock with a potato.
Shut up! You can do that?
Who could possibly forget Bob Newhart's multiple appearances as Professor Proton on The Big Bang Theory? When the guys hire him to come to the apartment, we're given a glimpse at Sheldon's childhood hero.
What do you think will happen?
I think I know.
It's gonna get sucked in.
He digs out an old autographed photo of the professor and tells the story of how he watched Proton every day after school. Sure enough, during the pilot episode of Young Sheldon, we find multiple references to Sheldon's adoration for Newhart's character. We see Sheldon panic when he can't find his bow tie to wear to school, citing Professor Proton always wearing one.
My tie is gone! My tie is gone!
Kelly, you don't really need a tie.
I have to find my tie! I have to find my tie!
Be right back.
Professor Proton wears a bow tie!
And finally, we see Sheldon watching him on TV every day when he gets home, just as he had described to him as an adult.
Can a clock be powered by an ordinary potato? I hope so, boys and girls, but this is going to be a really boring episode.
Number 13. What are the origins of the agreement?
According to the roommate agreement, paragraph 9, subsection B, the right to bathroom privacy is suspended in the event of force majeure.
Leonard and Sheldon had their share of fights over the roommate agreement, a contract signed by both of them dictating the terms of their living arrangement.
Dr. Leonard Hofstadter, you are officially charged with 2 violations of the roommate agreement.
From what they watched to the thermostat settings, the two consistently found themselves at odds. For Sheldon, however, the structure of these agreements somehow seemed to help him structure his world. He even drafted one for him and Amy. We would come to learn in young Sheldon that his obsession with contracts originated with his Meemaw. He helped her and Dr. Sturgis work out the ground rules of their courtship by providing a list of rules formulated as a contract.
Please sign and date.
You know, Sheldon, I'm a notary, if that helps.
Just when I thought you couldn't get cooler.
Narrator Sheldon tells us how it helped him remove confusion around social relationships. Number 12. Where did Sheldon's fascination with comic books come from? Comic book references were a staple in The Big Bang Theory, reflecting the guy's avid collector status.
Here, what about this one for my nephew?
A superb choice.
Oh, great.
Yeah, provided he has already read Infinite Crisis and 52 and is familiar with the reestablishment of the DC multiverse.
It would be easy to assume their adoration came from the typical geek culture stereotype, yet for Sheldon, his origin started far differently. In a very early Season 1 episode of Young Sheldon, he spots his friend Tam reading one and scoffs at them as childish.
You do understand those are for children.
Have you ever read one?
I outgrew picture books when I was 3.
Just eat your lunch.
Yet, when he gets dragged to a psychiatrist's office, an X-Men comic book piques his interest. Soon enough, he too ends up at a comic book store, looking for the follow-up issue.
I thought you said comic books were for children.
I'm a complicated young man.
Similarly, his foray into video games began skeptically until Mima's influence got him hooked.
Right behind you, monster!
Sam!
You losing life points! Do something!
Calm down, I've got this.
No, you're going to die! We're going to have to restart this level!
Number 11. Why does Mary talk so badly about George? When Mary visits Sheldon during the Parent series, the few tidbits she drops about her late husband are never particularly complimentary.
His father, God rest his soul, used to always say to me, Mary, you have to take your time with Sheldon.
Sounds like a wise man.
Oh, not so wise. He once tried to fight a bobcat for some licorice.
Sure, they had their share of ups and downs, but we never doubted their love for each other. So why does Mary seem to have such a sour view of him? Well, after Mary and Sheldon return from Germany, their relationship is arguably at its strongest. When George passes away, Mary's completely and understandably crushed. It seems like it's easier for her to channel her grief into anger.
I'm so mad at him. I'm mad at God. I'm mad at myself for not trying harder while he was here. This wasn't supposed to happen.
So next time we watch The Big Bang Theory and hear Mary criticize George, it will hit differently, knowing she's really just hurting deep down.
When I was pregnant with Shelley, I was driving to church, and I was praying to the Lord to give me a son smarter than his dumbass daddy.
Number 10. Why does Sheldon hate geology? Sheldon makes no secret of his disdain for practically every field but his own.
Physics answers the question, what is the nature of the universe? Geology answers the question, what did I just trip over?
Sure, it could just be his snobbiness, but young Sheldon tends to unearth the exact moments these opinions are formed. Take Season 1, for instance. Sheldon meets Libby, who opens his eyes to the world of geology. Whether it's a crush or he's just happy to meet someone intellectually stimulating, Sheldon decides to dig geology.
People didn't understand continental drift because they didn't understand seafloor spreading. What?
I'm both threatened and delighted by your brain.
However, when he overhears that Libby sees him as a little kid, he's heartbroken and essentially ends their friendship. We're not comparing Sheldon to a supervillain, but this seems to be an origin story as good as any.
I've been giving geology some more thought.
Yeah, and?
I've decided it's not really a science.
It's not?
No, it's more like a hobby. Rock collecting. Childish, really.
Number 9. When did Georgie become interested in tires?
Could just be the thermostat not opening right.
That is correct.
And how'd you know that?
I took auto repair last year.
And you actually paid attention?
I'm as surprised as you are.
When Sheldon and Amy finally decide to get married, audiences got to meet Sheldon's older brother, Georgie. He'd been mentioned occasionally throughout the show, but we had never seen his face. We come to learn that Georgie owns a very successful tire business and that he and Sheldon rarely speak.
What the hell are you doing here?
Hello, Georgie.
It's just George now.
Fine. George. No, I don't like it. Georgie.
The origins of Georgie's affinity for tires can be traced back to the ending of a Season 2 episode of the prequel series. Inspired by the pottery scene from Ghost, we see Georgie communing with a tire to try and find where the leak is.
I've hungered for your
Talk to me. Tell me where it hurts.
Gotcha.
Jump forward several scenes, and wouldn't you know it, Georgie's new father-in-law just happens to own a tire store.
Really? Selling tires? You are not gonna regret this. I worked my butt off for you. Nights, weekends, holidays, you name it, I'm there.
Pretty impressive kid, huh?
Number 8. Why did Mary get Sheldon tested? In one of the Big Bang Theory's longest-running gags, whenever someone would point out Sheldon's, let's call them quirks, he'd typically respond,
I'm not crazy. My mother had me tested.
Indeed, young Sheldon confirms this in a Season 3 episode. After Dr. Sturgis has a breakdown and is hospitalized, Mary worries that Sheldon, who's as gifted as his mentor, might experience similar struggles. She takes it upon herself to try and determine Sheldon's mental state, but the pair ultimately wind up in a psychologist's office. There, Mary finds reassurance while Sheldon learns the true cause of his mother's concerns.
But he's getting the help he needs, and I'm sure he's going to be fine.
And you think since he and I are both gifted, I'm going to end up like him.
The scene ends with a tender hug, but who knows what might have happened had Mary pursued the follow-up offer in Houston.
Actually, I had him tested as a child. Doctor says he's fine.
Told you.
Although I do regret not following up with that specialist in Houston.
Number 7. Why does Sheldon offer hot beverages?
What's going on?
Well, Howard's gonna sleep here tonight. He had a fight with his mother.
Did you offer him a hot beverage?
Despite his sometimes robotic behavior, Sheldon Cooper is not beyond showing compassion for those around him.
Leonard, social protocol states when a friend is upset, you offer them a hot beverage, such as tea.
Tea does sound nice.
When his rival Paige is saddened by her parents' divorce, Sheldon decides to make her a hot beverage to provide some kind of comfort. As George learns of what his son is doing, he smiles and says,
I'm proud of you.
Older Sheldon, as the narrator, tells the viewer he was surprised to hear his dad's words, but enjoyed them nonetheless. Fast forward to the Big Bang Theory, and Sheldon's obsession with consoling with hot beverages would be the norm, encouraged on occasion by his mother. Could it be his own way of keeping his dad proud?
Sheldon, your friend is hurting. What do we do when someone's hurting?
Offer them a hot beverage.
And when they're drunk as a skunk, what beverage do we offer?
Coffee.
Number 6. What is Soft Kitty's backstory? As smart as he is, both young and older Sheldon both seem to have an affinity for a childhood lullaby called Soft Kitty.
Soft kitty, warm kitty, little ball of fur. Happy kitty, sleepy kitty, purr, purr, purr.
Sung to him when he's sick, the tune surfaces time and time again over the course of the original show's 12-year run.
Soft kitty, warm kitty, little ball of fur.
In another Young Sheldon Season 1 reveal, we see his mom taking care of him and her pulling out this classic tune to help cure Sheldon of his ailments.
Soft kitty, warm kitty, little ball of fur.
Fans had heard him mention the origins of the song before, but to hear her sing it to him as a young child was a nice way to show us the origins of this classic song in his life.
Weiches Kätzchen, warmes Kätzchen, das nie und nimmer mört. Liebes Kätzchen, müdes Kätzchen, schnurrt, schnurrt, schnurrt.
Number 5. What was the deal with Sheldon and his dad? The Big Bang Theory would have us believe that George Sr. was a lazy oaf who cared more about football, beer, and TV than his own family.
My father loved football. He always made me watch it before I was allowed to do my homework.
That couldn't be further from the man we meet on Young Sheldon. George is a dedicated family man who goes to great lengths to make his loved ones happy, even at a personal cost.
I never understood the sacrifices my father made for his family's happiness, which made me somewhat less compassionate than I should have been.
Yay! We're not moving! We're staying in Texas!
Sure, maybe he didn't always get Sheldon, but that didn't mean he didn't care about what mattered to him.
I'm not Mr. Spock.
No, but I've seen you pretend to be him. Can you do that right now? You be Spock, I'll be Kirk.
Adult Sheldon admits he didn't always appreciate his father or recognize his efforts. Only with hindsight, and now a parent himself, does he realize that while George didn't always get it right, he always tried his hardest.
For a long time, I focused on my father's shortcomings. Now that I'm his age and have kids of my own, I realize he was just a person doing the best he could. And he did a lot.
Number 4. Has Sheldon always hated engineers? We all know Sheldon loves being the smartest person in the room.
Come on, you might have gone to school for a couple more years than me, but guess what? Engineers are just as smart as physicists.
You take that back!
However, when he enrolls in an engineering class, he meets his match in the tough-as-nails Professor Boucher.
What's wrong?
No, it's not.
Son, I'm giving you another chance before it's due.
Well, what's wrong with it?
That's your job to figure out.
During their first assignment, Sheldon proudly presents his bridge design, only to have it torn apart figuratively and literally. This continues as the professor refuses to go easy on him or even throw him a bone. Just when Sheldon thinks he's finally got it right, he finds himself locked out of class. We've all had that one teacher who gave us a lifelong aversion to a certain subject. Still, we've never taken it out on a friend who just happens to work in the same field.
Wait, so after all this time, that's your problem with engineering?
Evidently.
So all the teasing and all the abuse had nothing to do with me?
I'll admit, at first I had a chip on my shoulder because of that class. But then it was mostly you.
Number 3. Did Sheldon have kids? During the earlier seasons of The Big Bang Theory, fans would never have predicted Sheldon would end up with a girlfriend, let alone his own family.
Well, I wasn't going to give them any of the good names. I'm saving those for us.
Really? You thought about our kids?
Of course. I think you and I will have exceptional children.
Yet the writers found a brilliant way to introduce the character of Amy, and Sheldon's life would never be the same. Narrator Sheldon first mentions having kids in the season 1 finale.
I would go on to draw up such contracts throughout my life. With roommates, with my wife, even with my own children.
Then in a later episode, we learn that he named his son Leonard. Maybe after his best friend, maybe after his comic book hero. It really depends on who you ask.
I wanted his name to be Leonard Nimoy Cooper, but Amy wouldn't let me.
Be happy I let you name him Leonard.
Okay.
Love you.
Love you too.
Then in the series finale, Amy reveals they also have a daughter who wants to be an actress. We love the idea of them raising a mini Penny.
And by the way, your daughter wants to take acting classes.
I told you we never should have let Penny babysit.
Number 2. Where did Bazinga come from? Even if you're not a fan of the show, you've at least heard of the word Bazinga thanks to The Big Bang Theory.
Come here!
Bazinga. Bazinga.
Bazinga!
Although it has been around for a while, it cemented itself into pop culture by becoming Sheldon's catchphrase when he'd crack the occasional joke or pull a prank. The word is so closely tied to his character that it would be easy to think he created it himself.
Someone else in the vicinity of Jesus Christ.
Bazinga.
But after a visit to the comic book store as a child, Sheldon spots a display of silly gags made by the Bazinga Novelty Company. And just like that, the famous catchphrase was born.
Please, take a piece of gum.
Why?
Just please. Bazinga.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. The origins of Sheldon's 3 knocks. In season 10, Sheldon tells Penny why he always knocks 3 times.
I heard a sound coming from my parents' bedroom. When I opened the door, I saw my father having relations with another woman.
However, after getting to know George Sr. and young Sheldon, something just didn't add up. Yes, he had an emotional affair of sorts with their neighbor, Brenda Sparks, but nothing more ever developed between them. Still, the Big Bang Theory fans knew that this plot point would have to be addressed eventually. In season 7, Sheldon comes home, enters his parents' room, and yes, in a retcon to champion all retcons, the writers cleverly reframed the incident, clarifying it had been one big misunderstanding.
Are you sure your wife won't come home?
I'm sure. Yeah. Oh, Helga.
We can only assume Sheldon eventually learned the truth since he inexplicably included it in his memoir.
I never talked to my father about what I saw that day, but from then on, I added extra knocks so people could get their pants on.
Are there any questions you had about the Big Bang Theory that weren't answered in young Sheldon? Let us know in the comments.
You lost?
No. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from MsMojo. And be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.